The world is coming undone. Imperial flags reign across the galaxy.
Can you be trusted without your shackles?
Let's just get this over with, shall we?
We've a mission for you. A major weapons test is imminent. We need to know how to destroy it.
There isn't much time. Every day they grow stronger.
There is a 97.6% chance of failure.
He means well.
This is our chance to make a real difference. Are you with me?
All the way.
May the Force be with us.
Hello, Star Wars fans, and welcome to episode number 62 of the My Nerd World Star Wars podcast. I am your host, John Justice. Thank you so much for downloading the podcast. Thank you for emailing me. I have some emails that we'll be sharing with you this week. Nice to hear from some people who are from my new hometown of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and people as far as Israel. Lots to get to on today's show. It's Rogue Friday. And while it doesn't have the same impact, if you will, as Force Friday did last year for a lot of different reasons, it actually turned out to be pretty cool, to be honest with you. Not the way that I had certainly planned it to shake out, but I am currently, as I work here in my home studio, staring at quite a few Star Wars toys, many of which will be going away as soon as this podcast is done, only to be opened on Christmas, which I believe is probably now, as long as Star Wars continues to release movies around Christmas time, is going to be the new norm for me. And so I'll explain why coming up here in just a moment on the podcast. I want to give you a bit of an overview of what I'll be talking about today during the show. So we are going to talk a bit about Rogue Friday. And I'm impressed with the toy line, and I'll tell you the reasons why, what I picked up, what I'm hoping to pick up in the future. Also, a couple of reveals, sort of, as it relates to the toys, and just a few things that I've noticed that I hadn't picked up on yet, especially when you compare it to some of the behind the scenes footage that we've seen from the movie. I have an interesting story that I want to share with you from StarWarsNewsNet.com as it relates to the original construction of the Death Star and how the trench run and the trench in and of itself on the Death Star came into existence. We also know the trailer, the final trailer, and we know it's not going to be the final trailer. It'll be the first full trailer, and then much like we had with The Force Awakens, we will get an international version of that trailer, and then just a ton of mini trailers and a Japanese trailer and probably a Chinese trailer before the movie gets released on December 16th. But I will let you in on just how soon we'll all be able to go and see the full trailer for this movie that I'm getting increasingly excited for. And I say that because I'm not as excited for Rogue One as I was obviously The Force Awakens. So it's kind of taken me until now to really start to get amped up for this movie. And look, it's mostly just because it's not part of the saga films. The vested interest in these characters, we don't know yet. We don't know these characters yet. We haven't spent time with these characters. We don't know who they are. We have a general idea of where the story is obviously going to go as it relates to the capture of the Death Star plans, and we certainly know how that shakes out in A New Hope. But you don't have the mythology tied into it. So in terms of anticipation, it ends up becoming, I don't want to say just like a normal movie. I mean, it still ends up being a Star Wars movie in the end. But when you're looking at the excuse me, I got to pull the mic off here. When you're looking at the hype surrounding it, it certainly ends up being a lot different than The Force Awakens was. But I am getting more and more excited for this film. And as I've stated, and I don't want to go over old ground, but as I've stated on previous podcasts, I'm excited about the fact that we are going to be going back to the Star Wars universe right before the movie that started it all off. Something else that we'll do in the podcast, and you'll hear this during the last quarter of the podcast, if you will. During my regular radio show that I do Monday through Friday at KTLK, Twin Cities News Talk, here in Minneapolis, we do a post-show podcast 3 days a week where we don't really script it. The show in and of itself that we do on a weekly basis isn't scripted by any stretch, but we don't plan anything out. We basically just turn the mics on for 45 minutes after the show is over, and just kind of talk about the show that just took place, and then whatever else comes to mind. Well, we ended up getting into a lengthy conversation because one of the key members of our show, her name is Samantha, Sam. She's the producer, but she's kind of the third person between myself, John Justice, and the other host, Drew. She's never seen any of the Star Wars movies, and I've never met anybody or become good friends with anybody who has never seen any of the Star Wars movies. And so we get into a lengthy conversation because she's going to be watching all the films leading up to Rogue One. And so we get into a rather detailed conversation about exactly how we're going to handle doing that and what order she is going to be watching the films. So that'll be the latter portion of the podcast. And just a quick podcasting note, because of the nature of which I put the podcast together, you'll need to, more than likely, unless I have time to do it. And you know what? I will have time to do it. I was going to say I was going to be splitting this up. Well, actually, no, I won't. So here's the deal. If you listen to this on Spreaker, on Spreaker.com, you're going to need to go to iTunes and look up John Justice, My Nerd World, and download the podcast there to get the bonus content at the end. It's just the nature of how I have to post this and how I have to grab the audio. So if you're listening on Spreaker or Stitcher, I forgot that one too. If you're listening on anything other than iTunes to get the bonus content at the end, you're going to have to go to iTunes and download the podcast from there. So again, that's just a quick programming note. So Force Friday is today. I am staring at a Sergeant Jyn Erso, an Imperial ground crew. These are all 3 3/4, and K2SO. I wish I could have bought more. I also have in front of me some of the diecast vehicles: the Imperial cargo shuttle, the TIE Striker, and the new U-wing. And I purchased a few other things that I kept in the closet that I'll be staying there again until Christmas time. We did this last year, leading into The Force Awakens. And that was because it was so close to Christmas, and because being the head of the household, and it's so hard to buy for Dad because Dad kind of gets what he wants for the most part. I purchased my Star Wars toys for The Force Awakens, and then we just put them with all the kids' toys, and Melinda would wrap them for me, and then I'll have all these toys to open up on Christmas morning. So apart from the diecast vehicles, everything else is going into the closet and will be given to me as gifts on Christmas Day, which I'm really that's cool for me. I mean, I think this is going to become the new tradition for our house. So I mean, for that, I'm kind of excited to take a look at these, not take them out of the package, and then go and put them away until Christmas rolls around. This morning when I got up, I had every intention of getting up a little bit early and heading over to Walmart and getting my toys on the way to work. And I simply ran out of time. Well, let me back up. I had enough time to run into Walmart and do that, but I did the same thing for Force Friday. And Force Friday was different. I mean, Force Friday, it had been 10 long years since we'd had the release of a Star Wars toys, of a new Star Wars movie. And so to be able to go as an adult man-child and head to the store at 2 o'clock in the morning and get Star Wars toys when it had been, a decade since I've had a chance to do that, it was a big deal. However, I experienced that with The Force Awakens, and given, again, kind of the time constraints, I knew I wouldn't have enough time to kind of sit back and really look at everything. And I kind of just grab off the shelves a few things that I wanted and then be on my way. And that's what happened last year. So I decided, you know what? I don't think there's going to be the rush on the Star Wars Rogue One toys the same way there was the Force Awakens toys. And I remember, if you go back and listen to that podcast of me searching for the Star Wars toys, you'll remember that I went on a lengthy search that day to multiple locations to get the particular items that I wanted. The thing about the release of the Rogue One toys this year was Hasbro really scaled down the number of toys they were releasing. And I gotta say, it is to their credit. Most everything I saw was stuff that I would purchase. When The Force Awakens came out, you had your fair share of not just kind of goofy toys. They had the mini brick things, and we were all so hungry for anything new that a lot of people snatched up those things, just anything you could get with The Force Awakens on it. And there was a lot of stuff that still was peg warmers out there. There were a couple of characters from The Force Awakens that never made it, toys that never made it into the movie or were cut. The reason that is, by the way, is because Hasbro has to begin production on these items, right? Because they're all made in China, way in advance. And so because they have to go into production way in advance, they, on a big movie like The Force Awakens, they have to pick and choose which characters that they want to go and sell, even though they don't know what their role is going to be in the movie. So because of that, you end up with a couple of Cantina characters. You end up with a guy like Constable Zuvio that looks cool as an action figure, but ends up potentially ultimately getting cut from the film. And that's a risk that, the buyer takes when we don't know what we're going to get. It really seems like with Rogue One, they really narrowed down the scope of the figures that we were going to get, looking at everything so far. Even down to this Imperial ground crew character, we'll see these individuals, all these different characters in the movie. And so having the main focus of all these toys, and I'm wording this appropriately. What I'm saying is the fact that they really limited the number of toys they were putting out gave us very specific toys that I believe are much more buyable than what we had for The Force Awakens. And like I said, I was looking at everything today going, oh my gosh, I could get in big trouble here because I really kind of want all these action figures. And we only got 2 big vehicles. They only released the TIE Striker and the U-Wing. And again, those are prominent vehicles in the movie. Now, you're also talking about a movie that is arguably a smaller scale. We haven't seen it yet, but that's what we believe, right? Than The Force Awakens was. But I don't know, man. I was impressed when I went to Target. I got off the air and I went over to Target and went to the toy display, and they had everything. And everything that whether it was Black Series, 6-inch figures, the 3 3/4 figures. I don't think there were any figures there that I had seen online that were going to be available today. That weren't available at the store today. And then even some characters that I really wanted, they had in 2 packs. So the Shore Trooper, the Death Trooper, a couple of the other Rebel characters, they were all put in these 2 packs. And all these 2 packs were filled with characters that you both wanted, at least for me, that you both wanted to get your hands on. And so I didn't purchase those ones, and I easily could have because I wanted those characters. But I wanted to take advantage of the specials that Target was having at the time. But I got to hand it to Hasbro. I hope that they treat The Force Awakens the same way they do with Rogue One. And I'd much rather see a smaller selection of things that I really want than a whole bunch of different options and run the risk of purchasing characters or vehicles that aren't going to be in the film. Good. Here's a really good example. I loved the Snowspeeder and the Snow Troopers that came out with The Force Awakens. That scene never ended up in the movie, and I ended up buying pretty much like every iteration that they made of that vehicle with those characters. Now, as it relates to the characters themselves, I think they're all really cool. Disney Lucasfilm is in a really tough spot with Rogue One, because here you